This is the Barbados Today morning news for Tuesday, November 12. Thank you for joining us. I am Marie-Claire Williams. The Barbados Secondary Teachers Union has called all members to a meeting this afternoon to discuss the issue of school violence. The meeting comes on the heels of the fatal stabbing of 16-year-old Tamario Holder by a 15-year-old student at the Frederick Smith Secondary School last week. A notice from the BSTU says the meeting will be held under the theme Deadly Violence Within Our School System. It is scheduled for 12:30 at the Barbados Workers Union's Solidarity House. The BSTU says the meeting is also a show of support for teachers and staff of the Frederick Smith Secondary School, as well as the families affected by the incident. Meanwhile, following last week's stabbing, Education Minister Santia Bradshaw says her ministry has zero tolerance for violence in schools. Bradshaw told a news conference last evening that this issue must be addressed urgently.
We must send a message that this must come to an end and that there are other ways that we can resolve our differences and to be able to deal with issues of anger and conflict resolution in our society. And it must start within the schools as well as being able to be transferred into the households as well.
She also called on parents to get more involved in their children's lives and ensure that they stay on the right track.
It is important that you do so because while the school may be able to address a number of issues during the school day, the reality is that the behaviors that we are seeing exhibited in terms of discipline and alternate forms of approaching a number of these children needs to be taken into account by our parents in dealing with the challenges that we are encountering. And I therefore would want that parents reach out on Thursday and certainly on Friday, but on an ongoing basis, to be able to make sure that they are in communication with teachers and certainly with the management of the schools across this country to ensure that they're fully apprised of all of the challenges that students may be encountering and certainly that teachers may be encountering in dealing with their students as well.
In other news this morning, after barely surviving water shortages and extreme heat for several months, farmers in the Spring Hall Land Lease project in St. Lucie say they have been almost wiped out by last weekend's heavy rains. Vice President of the Spring Hall Farmers Association, Dujon Edwards, told Barbados Today that even though the rains have subsided, many farmers are unable to access their land as their crops are still underwater. He revealed that while the damage assessment is still ongoing, it is estimated so far to be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Edwards says a number of farmers have sustained total losses and have no way of bouncing back except through some intervention from the government. One of the island's main private sector sugarcane producers is calling for an overhaul of the struggling industry. Director of Barbados Farms Limited, Edward CLARKE, also wants greater focus on increasing earnings from a variety of outputs. He told Barbados Today that the survival of the industry depends heavily on strengthening partnerships between private sugarcane producers and the Barbados Agricultural Management Company.
The government has made it very clear that they cannot continue to support the industry at the level that they have done in the past. But BMC as a whole needs to transform and move into the 21st century. I think ultimately Barbados has to try and make better use of the finished product, whether it is through alcohol production, whether it is through use of syrup for the rum producers, or whether it's through energy, because we have to be able to make better use of the agricultural space and generate revenue for the farmers and the agricultural sector through the use of land. Everything might not be able to produce sugarcane anymore, but we might be able to produce raw material for use for energy and other sources of output. It is important that we get the revenue at the output end and not at the raw material supply end, but we're trying to generate revenue at the output, the final product end, and that's where the farmers and AMC as a whole will benefit in the long run.
There's regional and international news after this short break. It's Festive Friday at the Bridgetown Night Market at Pelican Craft Center. Kick off the weekend this Friday from 4 p.m. to midnight with loads of food, drinks, and entertainment. Get ready for Crop Over with the Rhythm Roots Street Parade. Party like it's Kadooman Day on the street around Pelican Village with costume reveler, music, and more. It's Festive Friday. It's Festive Friday at the Bridgetown Night Market at Pelican Village Center from 4 p.m. to midnight. Admission free.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
Thank you for staying with us. We're back with news from the region. Trinidad and Tobago's two main political parties, the governing People's National Movement and the United National Congress, are both confident of victory in the upcoming local government elections. Candidates filed their nomination papers on Monday in what observers say was a smooth process. We get more from TTT News.
This year's local government elections are considered to be a dress rehearsal for the 2020 general elections. And so the main parties, the ruling PNM and the UNC, are taking the elections very seriously. The Port of Spain City Corporation, now controlled by the PNM, is a seat the UNC is confident to wrest away from the incumbent. Campaign manager Marlene MacDonald says the PNM is doing the work and they will continue to control the city for the next 3 years.
You know, we are out in our force and we'll be ramping up in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and we expect to take all the 12 seats. You know, Port of Spain North has 5, Port of Spain South has 7, and we expect to be victorious in every electoral district in Port of Spain. So we are going to have a complete council and our 4 aldermen.
Incumbent representative for Northern Port of Spain, Abina Hartley, is not at all worried about losing her seat.
I think that I have kept on the ground as much as I could, and as you would have said, done a lot of these social programs. So I trust that my work will speak for itself, but in nothing we can be overconfident. I mean, I am trusting in God always, and going to continue hitting the ground for the next 3 weeks until December the 2nd.
UNC candidate for St. James, Diana Williams, shared some plans she intends to undertake once she becomes a councillor.
Well, actually, I want to put in programs in place for the youths because they're getting a lot of complaints about their education and stuff like that. And also, I want to have like a little sports program put in place as well.
Further afield, escalating protests in Hong Kong have left 2 people in critical condition. Protesters threw petrol bombs at police after a weekend of clashes across the Chinese-ruled territory in the ongoing pro-democracy unrest. We get more in this Reuters report.
After 24 weeks of unrest, Monday showed that Hong Kong's protests have not lost their capacity for shocking violence. One protester left in a critical condition after being shot at close range amid a dramatic escalation in violence. Hong Kong police claimed the officer was acting in self-defense and that a protester had been trying to snatch his gun. A friend who visited the wounded man in hospital said he hadn't done anything and they just shot him. The 21-year-old fell just a couple of meters from a makeshift memorial to a student who died in a fall from a car park last week as protesters were being dispersed by police. That's poured more oil on Hong Kong's almost daily protests, and the scenes on Monday are an escalation. It's rare for tear gas to be fired in working hours in places like the Central Business District, on streets lined with bank headquarters and top brand shops. Banks were one target of the protesters' anger on Monday. Videos circulated online also showed a man dousing petrol on another and setting him on fire. Police condemned the incident and said the victim had been in a disagreement with protesters. Hong Kong's hospital authority said a man had been admitted with severe burns.
That's news, but for the very latest, visit our website at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, and like us on Facebook, and sign up for breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media in bus terminals and Screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. You can also find us on Mix 96.9 FM and Capital Media HD 99.3 FM. I am Marie Claire Williams. Good morning.